Training Payne here. So it is the morning, and I've been thinking a lot. What do I want to do with this vlog? When I was doing Training Payne, my blog way back, it would be this is what I did today, the amount of training I did, which was like insane amount of miles, like when you're doing 15, 20 hours. And I would talk about the struggles that I had for 2 or 3 years, with all this training every day and how I would have to push myself out the door and how hard it was. And there was, for a lot of people, they were inspired by it because they felt, they went through it and it was pushing through. And I can't tell you how many times, I'd get off a plane at 11 o'clock at night and it would be, raining or spitting outside, and I'd get out and I would do an hour run and, through neighborhoods where there's nobody, everyone's asleep. Or one time I went to Israel for a business trip. And the minute I got off the plane, I was in the gym doing an hour bike. Then I went out for a run. And the next morning I was up at 6 o'clock and I was doing a swim, which was interesting. A little bit of a story, for example, when I did that swim, I was probably the youngest person. I was 44, 45. I was probably the youngest person by 20 years in this pool. And before I left, there was an ambulance out front that somebody had some problem in the pool. So anyway, yesterday after, doing workouts and everything like that, I decided, I had sent a link to my dad that I've started, my dad and mom, that I've started this vlog. So the minute my dad clicked on it, I talked to him. He goes, well, the video I saw, it didn't even have you in it. It was, a triathlon race. And I realized, I clicked on it and it went to a race, the triathlon Ironman Canada, that CBC, Canadian Broadcasting, someone videotaped it from the TV. This was back in 1987 when I did Penticton. And I realized that then I went to the page retraining Payne, and I was like, man, it's not organized at all. I had, a bunch of videos, and if you click this, it went to a different type video, and it didn't go to the vlog. So last night I probably spent 3 or 4 hours going through the videos and organizing them. And I didn't realize how many videos I had. I did a lot of videos for Training Payne, so I didn't realize that I had done it to the level that I did. Like, I'm talking, I don't know, I might have 100 videos. I didn't count them, but there was a lot. So how do I organize these? So I started putting playlists together. One was all of my post-race reports. Another one was China. John Barkley and I went to China, so that was the journey. Other ones were training and, all kinds of different. There was, I have some vintage video from old Super 8 cameras that I had converted, family videos, from 50 years ago. And, when I was 1 year old, 2 years old, and it even went back beyond that with my parents being younger. And so anyway, I went and I spent, like I said, 3, 4 hours. I don't know, but it was a lot. And I organized it and I put playlists and did all that sort of stuff. And as I was doing this, it was really interesting because I'd start watching some of these videos that I haven't seen in 15 years of the heavy training. And I remember watching one which kind of blew my mind. It was day one of Kona training and that I'm going to qualify for Kona. And what was interesting that I remember at that time was doing that first video. I didn't even think I was going to qualify for Kona. I didn't think it was possible, but it was one of those things that, I'm just going to say it. And lo and behold, I ended up qualifying for Kona, not the way that I thought. Went to China, got food poisoning. Then I did another race, which was Utah, and I ate chocolate bars on the bike, and I ate McDonald's McMuffin, and I had never done that before. So needless to say, I was in the porta potty. I could have probably qualified on that race if I wasn't in the porta potty. And then finally, the race that I didn't think I would qualify at was Lake Placid, heavy competition. And I just went in with no expectations. And lo and behold, that was the race that I ended up qualifying for Kona. And there was videos that were videotaped on the roll down, the top 8 spots, and they called my name and all this. So I went through all these videos and I was like, man, I was in pretty good shape back then. So the playlists now are organized. I learned a lot in the process. And yesterday we, went out. This morning, I'm super hungry. I made the biggest mistake. I did all this training. I did a swim, I did weights, I did a bike ride, and I didn't really eat much after. I only ate about 2,200 calories. And yeah. So anyway, by the time I was going to bed, I was feeling pretty hungry. Of course, I looked at it and said, hey, this is good because I'm going to lose a little weight. Because even though I've lost, 48 poundish in there and I've got to 50, but maybe that 50 was due to lack of, water weight loss. I'm still wanting to be about 10 pounds lighter. And the reason I'm not 10 pounds lighter, even though I've been taking Mounjaro, and if anyone knows about Mounjaro or GLP-1, it tends to curb your appetite. It's a lot of people think, oh, if they don't know about it, that they just take it and you're automatically going to lose weight. And that's definitely not the case. You still have to eat properly. You still have to hydrate properly. You still have to exercise. The only thing that I found is it suppresses the appetite so that you're not doing late night snacking. For me, it was the late night snacking. And what happened in November, I think it was November, maybe October. And this is interesting because every year I think back and it's that last quarter of the year going into that winter, and maybe it's primal, but I would always get into wanting to eat ice cream for some reason. And this year was no different. The only difference was I had dropped weight. I was sitting around, under 200 pounds. And I started eating ice cream. Now, I could limit it to one ice cream cone. And literally, to put it in perspective, I was having an ice cream cone every single night after dinner. And then I got this urge for Jawbreakers and for bubble gum. I have a bubble gum machine, so the gum balls, and I was buying this stuff on Amazon. And when I say I was buying it and having gum balls and I was having Jawbreakers, the bags were 2.2 kilograms, I think. So, well, I know that's what it was. So whatever that works out to, I think it's about 4.5 pounds. So I get 4.5 pounds of Jawbreakers and I get 4.5 pounds of gum balls. And, there was something that I needed sugar. So I wasn't gaining weight and I was on this sugar fix. And only recently, like within the last couple of weeks, have I dissipated from the sugar and craving the ice cream and that sort of stuff. So I think part of it was talking to AI's ChatGPT, because I was also still training and not able to, my low heart rate training wasn't working. And low heart rate training, the idea behind it is you convert your body to start burning fat versus than burning glycogen. And when you have sugar, I guess it turns off regardless that fat burning system. Similar to if you have alcohol, it'll turn off that fat burning system. So needless to say, it was like I was told, hey, if you want to get your times down and you want to, or get your fitness up and be able to go faster at a lower heart rate, you got to get off the Jawbreakers and I have to get off the bubble gum. So 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I still had half a bag of Jawbreakers and I had a bit of gumballs. I still have the gumballs. If you see some of the videos, you'll see it in the background. But I still wanted to eat something or chew on something, so I got sugar-free gum. And I can't tell you how much my family is totally against me chewing gum, because I chew like a horse, and I would throw on not one gumball, but the minute that the gumball flavor died, which could be 5 minutes, then it was another gumball and another gumball, and it wouldn't be uncommon that I have 8 gumballs and my cheeks are like chipmunks and I'm chewing away. That's where my, diet was. I don't even know how I got onto that topic, but oh yeah, whatever. I can't remember. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit today was age and the turning 60. This year in November, I turned 60 years old, and it was a tough journey prior to starting to get back into shape. It was something when you're younger, and when I say younger, I'm even talking in your mid 40s, even I would say early 50s. I still had this philosophy of live life, and I never thought of the future, never really thought of retirement or anything like that. And then as I was getting out of shape and I started getting close to 60, I would say about a year prior, maybe a year and a half prior to turning 60, I really started to think about mortality. And at 60 years old, and then you start thinking about finances, and retirement. Do I have enough money to retire? And what would I need to retire? And when do I want to retire? I had my youngest brother unfortunately passed away about a year and a half ago. And it kind of hits you a bit. He was only 50 years old, and you never know what's going to happen. He ended up having cancer and passed away. And so it just got me into this thinking. And then when you're not, in shape, and I was getting up to that 230, 240, and you start thinking, that, those days of being in shape have passed you by. And I'd go for walks, and in a way, I was almost embarrassed doing walks and putting my walks onto Strava. It's like, you're used to running and now you're walking, and when you start walking, and I understand walking is good for you, and I don't have a problem with walking at all. Alice walks all the time, and it's great fitness. I'm not criticizing that. For me though, it was when you come from being in really great shape and now you're walking and doing weights with, light weights, maybe 10, 20, 25 pounds, because I was still exercising as I was starting to lose weight since March, but still mentally, starting to ask myself, what am I going to do? And I started watching videos of people that either are retired or have been, or just retired a year prior or had retired for a couple of years, and their philosophies. And I was hearing a lot of, oh, I wish I had done it earlier. I should have retired earlier. And then I had others that you got to be careful when you retire, because at first you think it's a vacation and you're drinking too much and you've got all this freedom. And then there's others that are, I retired too early and I have no money and I'm running out of money, and now I have to get a job I'm working at Home Depot just to make things ends meet. And I started getting into, again, ChatGPT, although I'm using more and more different ones now, jumping around. But what do I need to? And then I was like, okay, it's 7 years that this business that I'm involved in, that I started, and you get maybe that 7-year itch. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to retire at 63 is what I put my mind into, and I still have it. So if I'm going to retire at 63, what's the amount of money that I need to retire at 63? And then you do the reverse engineering and you go, okay, I've got to do this, this, this. And then you start going through, okay, what am I going to do with that money? What businesses, or sorry, what stocks am I going to invest in? I hear a lot about Bitcoin. You know, I'm a big Tesla fan. You start looking at, you know, where's the future going? You know, robotics, chips, car, you know, all this stuff. And you try to narrow it down. What stock would I buy? And all this sort of stuff. And just basically setting myself up. When, you know, you hear a stat that when 66 years old seems to be the age where you're not mobile anymore, that's where it changes for men and women. It's not that you're not mobile, but it's not uncommon that people get to 66 and then, you know, they're not as mobile. They can't go traveling. They have maybe some medical issues, things like that. And then you look at what's the average age. You know, it's in that 78, 79. So even if you retire at 60, you only have 18 years left. And then you look at it and you realize that the last 15 years went so fast. You know, I look at when I did the Ironman, I think it was 42. I can't remember what it was. It was like 2010, so 15 years ago. And I go, man, I still think of myself as that guy from 15 years ago, and now it's past like 15 years. I can't believe how fast. And then you look at it and you go, well, if those 15 years went that fast, and I'm 60 years old now, and the next 15 years go that fast, now I'm 75 years old. And if I hit the average of 78, I don't have a lot of time left. And what am I going to do? So all this stuff has been going through my head. And one thing I've noticed, and going downstairs, for example, just to kind of wrap this up, it would be, you know, I'm starting to shuffle more, you know, make sure my hand's on the railing. You know, just starting to feel a little bit older, a lot older than what I had. So what I wanted to do, though, is I noticed since I started getting back and exercising a bit, is that when I first started, and actually I just noticed this yesterday during my workout, ever since I've started getting back into it, my knees have been squeaking. And not the kind of squeak that you actually know it's coming from your knees. It's, if you ever have like old Lycra, or you have elastic waistband, men will know this, if, you know, with underwear, etc., because we never buy new underwear. That's always Christmas presents maybe, or we wait till the last possible minute. But what happens is if you have anything with elastic or Lycra, as it gets old, you'll get this squeaking sound, like, you know, you'll just know that it's time to change it. And I remember doing lunges, just getting back into doing lunges, and I would hear that fabric pulling sound as I'm doing it, and I'm thinking, well, geez, you know, these Lycra pants that I'm wearing are, you know, they must be old because I'm getting that squeaking sound. And in fact, I took one pair, and they weren't that old. They were from, I think I bought them off Temu. So I bought these shorts off Temu, which, you know, we all know about Temu, and it was a great deal. So I started feeling the stretching, and I figured, oh, these are Temu shorts, so that's why they're squeaking. So I went and I threw them in the garbage. And then I continued to do lunges and anything where I had to bend my knees. And I realized they weren't the Temu shorts. They're actually, my knees are squeaking. So again, I jump on ChatGPT, which I am the top 1%. They send a year-end review on ChatGPT, and it says, you know, you had 23,000 messages. You had the, you know, 1%, top 1%, and then I was 0.1%. 1/10 of 1% of people getting on it. So you have to understand, I am huge on AI and ChatGPT, and actually I've started going on to Claude and XAI, Grok, and DeepSeek, and things like that. And it's interesting. You'll get similar answers but different, and now it jumps around where ChatGPT, I see the evolution and change in that, and Claude, I'm starting to work with that, and I just started with Perplexity, but that's a whole new blog post. But the point is that I would ask ChatGPT, I'd say, my knees are creaking. Is this something I should be worrying about? Is it common? And it's said to me, it's common for someone your age, and that the more you work out, it should go away, and not to worry. It's not like you're going to need a knee replacement or injections, and it's not a cartilage thing or along those sort of lines. So I was very happy to hear that. And then I just noticed in the last few days, maybe a week, and I noticed really only yesterday, is that I don't have the squeaking in my knees anymore. At least I don't think I do. And I was at the gym and I was doing lower leg work yesterday. That's my workout legs, and I'm pushing it, man. And I got to tell you, one of the reasons I'm pushing it is because I lost my ass. I know it sounds strange. I've always had a fairly big ass. Maybe it's from cycling, maybe it's genetic, but in my family, I've got a family of flat assers, and I always had the ass, and I got the ass, I think, in a nice way. Like, I mean, a nice looking ass, not, one of these big, unreasonable looking things. But as I started getting back into it, I would look in the mirror and I go, I don't think my ass is what it used to be. And then Alice said to me one day, and this was like 4 weeks ago, man, you've lost your ass. And I'm not self-conscious, or I don't have vanity or anything like that. But losing my ass, which was kind of a staple of mine, started to become a pretty big motivation that I better start doing lower body work, because I've always had these incredibly strong legs. Even when I was 15 years old at the downtown Y with all the bodybuilders, I did a 375-pound squat at 15 years old because my legs were so strong. And on the bike, it's really strong. And some people slow down when they run up hills, and I don't. My legs are strong. So they've gotten weaker, and I guess with all of the, lifting and running, etc., I had a nice tushy. So that's one of the motivations that I've had at the gym is, yesterday I'm doing weighted lunges, I'm doing squats, I'm doing presses, I'm doing extensions, I'm doing hamstring, kind of working on all that stuff and checking out my butt. And it is getting better. It's starting to inflate up a bit. And that's one of the things that has been a motivator. The other thing, as I mentioned, I haven't been vain, but this is kind of funny. As I was starting to get older, I noticed my forehead is getting bigger and bigger. And especially I looked back at some of the photos when I was in those mid 40s. And even though I'd been losing a little bit of hair, it still was around here. And I like to joke that part of the reason I'm losing hair is a medication that I'm on. A side effect is that you'll lose hair. Now, realistically, my youngest brother, he lost a lot of hair, almost bald. My next brother, closest to me, he's lost a lot of hair. So I'm, if you look at it, it might look good head on, but as you can see, it's, and I've been taking, like they have, I forget what it's called. It's some sort of a little pill that apparently makes you not lose your hair. When I was younger, I had a pretty full head of hair. So it was funny, and I have a little funny story about that, in that I guess it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to check out what would a hair transplant be like. And so I actually went down to a hair transplant place, and the guy looks at it and they, yeah, we could do this and we can do this, and you'll need so many, hairs taken out of the back and put on the front. And the new technology we have doesn't look like you have a hair job and all this stuff. And the price I got, I think it was like $13,000 or $15,000. And go ahead, think about it. And if you're interested, they weren't pushy about it or anything like that. But if you're interested about it, come and, we'll see what we can do for you. And they went through all of the, they'll shave your head. And then, as it grows back, you can't really put a hat on or cover it up. And all I'm thinking is, even if I did it, people are, to see a guy that has the scabs on their head, and you got to let it grow out, and it could take 6 months, it could take a year. Of course the stuff I've seen looks really good, but it was like, I don't think I could get to that level of embarrassment. And the funny part is that they called me, it was on a Friday, and I don't know why, but I just said, okay, let's do it. And they said, okay, we want you to put $1,000 down. And that $1,000 is non-refundable. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. Gave them the credit card. And it was on a Friday, and that weekend was Thanksgiving, I think, pretty sure it was Thanksgiving. And the family came over, so we have a dinner, the turkey, all that sort of stuff. And as we're at the table, my 2 kids are there, and I say to them, oh, by the way, I'm going to get a I'm thinking I put $1,000 down on getting a hair transplant. And of course, their faces went, I don't want to say they went white, but maybe white, a bit of laughing. They're like, and I thought they would be totally supportive, like, hey, Dad, that's a good idea that you're doing that. And it was like, the words were, are you crazy? Why would you do that? They were, getting all over. And it became funny because by the end of it, I realized, I'm not sure I want to do it. And I told him I'd put $1,000, and my son says, well, and I go, well, I'm not. And my son started laughing. He says, you just bought him a new Callaway driver. And he says, you know how many people probably sign up with the $1,000 and then they have, bail out. So these guys must make a ton of money. So he was joking about golf, and that the guys bought himself a Callaway driver based on my deposit, which is funny. And so I just forgot about it. And the one thing though is my brother-in-law reminds me, I don't know why his hair looks fine, etc. He's an airline pilot, flies these, he's been doing it a long time. So he does the 747, the big planes across the sea and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, maybe he wants a full head of hair. So he always says to me, I guess he got wind that I had done this, and he's like, hey, if you want to get it done, I'm going to get it done. I'll go with you. And we decided, I told him that when I was doing a lot of my research, I was watching YouTube, and there was videos on going to Turkey. That seems to be a hot spot because there's great surgeons there. The big thing is the pricing. That what's 13 grand here, maybe 5 grand there, and that's including your flight, and they put you up in a 5-star hotel, and they do all this. So anyway, he keeps bugging me about it, and it's something that I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And that comes back to the age, and I kind of got through that and that vanity. Although the butt, like I say, I'm working on the butt for sure. And then now my philosophy is I've started to get back into shape. And yesterday was a winning day because I did the 3 workouts. And I felt like old days, like when I was doing Ironmans. It felt that I had had a good workout this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday being a rest day. It's always great to start your program on a wet rest day. It just felt really good, and I'm starting to feel stronger. And as I've done that, I'm seeing my philosophy is changing, where I'm not thinking of future retirement and slowing down and all this sort of stuff. I'm feeling much more about living life. And one of the things that we did last year that we're doing this year, and so looking forward to it, and I think this is based on this philosophy that it's important to live. And when I heard that 66, you're good up to 66, and then the wheels potentially could fall off, that it falls off for some people, we decided, you know what, let's get out of Canada over the winter months. And last year we went to Los Angeles, and we stayed there for 3 months. And then this year we were in the Hollywood Hills, which was kind of cool, foothills of the Hollywood Hills, and we got to live that lifestyle, and it was really cool. Like, I could do a whole video on that, and I might, in terms of the experience. This year we're going to move it to, we have an Airbnb in Newport Beach in Balboa Island, and part of the reason I wanted to go there was because it was Orange County, and I want to be able to ride my bike safely. Because when we went to Los Angeles, I brought my bike last time, and not being in shape and being 200 and near 40, well, 243 when I left. And I didn't realize how many hills there are in California. And so to get up to Mulholland Drive, which was above us, you have to do a lot of climbing, and then there's no bike lanes. And even though, and I look at it back in the past when I was in really good shape and I had to do a bike ride, I wouldn't even think about traffic back then. I just went and did it, and it was nothing that I would even consider. Now, as I gotten older and I start seeing these roads and there's no bike lanes, I went, okay, where could I bike? The only place that seemed to be pretty safe was Griffith Park, which I brought my bike, and I think I rode 3 or 4 times, and for half an hour, or for close to an hour is probably what it was. So I hauled the bike down there for basically no reason. So the reason that we went to Newport Beach this year, or Orange County, is that when you drive through there, the roads are just perfect. Where LA, the roads are very bumpy and not well taken care of. You go to out there, they've got bike lanes everywhere. They've got trails that you can go for miles and miles that are off the beaten path. So I figured this year, and we booked the place right after we left Los Angeles because we liked it so much. This year we're gonna see what it's like out in Orange County. And the big thing though is looking at it and saying, okay, do I want to retire and, just sacrifice everything for the next few years to retire, let's say at 66, which is my goal, or was my goal. I can't say it is right now. Or do I want to enjoy life while I can enjoy life? And look at it that, you do have your home, there's equity in your home. Maybe one day if you need to, you could sell the home, etc. Again, I can get all into that. I've spent so many hours thinking about this, going through it. And right now, my philosophy is completely different, and I'm starting to feel like a younger version of myself, and just wanting to go out and enjoy life. Today, it is a simple one. It's a run for sure, and I think I have core work that I need to do as well. So it's only a 45-minute run. It is cold out there. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to run outside, or I bought this treadmill that goes under the bed that I bought it for walking. This is a desk that does the rising. And I bought treadmill to walk under. I've done it a couple times, but I've also run, and I've got a little TV there and watched it. So I'm going to figure it out. This is a little bit different than the first few vlogs, and I figure, it's got to have a little bit of personality and a little bit of insight, as opposed to this is what I did today, and this is the running, and this is this, and this is this. There isn't a goal. There's not an Ironman. There's not a 100-mile bike ride. There's nothing like that. All this is right now is just about, getting in life, being 60 years old, some of the philosophical differences, and seeing the retraining of Payne. So again, I want to get back. I don't want to say, maybe it's like you're reversing aging is maybe a way to put it, that I do want to reverse age. My knees aren't cracking right now. I'm starting to walk down the stairs a little bit more. My legs are feeling pretty solid. I can, I can sit down on the toilet right now. That's important to know, because as I've started to work out, I've noticed that after, and when I say workout, I'm talking doing things that strengthen the rump roast here. I noticed that doing the lunges and all that sort of stuff, not necessarily the next day, but for sure the day after, just bending down and sitting on the toilet is painful. And I look at it two ways. Number one is, yeah, it's painful, but that means I'm making progress. And I was watching a vlog, and the guy says, it's going to continue to happen. In the past, if I was sore, it might be sore, especially when you're younger, for the first week, and then you're not sore when you work out. What I found is that I'll be sore, I'll stop being a little bit sore, I'll start working out again, the lower body be sore. So yesterday I crushed it again on the lower body. Today I can, sit on that toilet, but I can't guarantee that tomorrow I won't. And I think if I'm getting to the point where I want to have that pain where I can't sit on the toilet, because that then means I'm making progress. There, that's a bit of a brain dump today. So I hope you enjoyed some of these stories. I'm going to be working out today. It is Friday. I'm still on a holiday. Which is good, because part of the reason that I'm doing a little bit of this more verbal stuff is I'm pretty busy at work, and that's primarily what I need to do. So it's not like I can spend a lot of time editing and things like that, although I do enjoy it. And it definitely is keeping the mind fresh, because I'm always looking at this new AI and all that sort of stuff. So until tomorrow, adios.